Boo. I've been hearing a lot of news about those high school seniors that are getting their UC acceptances back now, given that it is March 8th. So, acceptances are rolling out, right? For the public and in-state folk, most people are probably deciding what UC campus that they're going to be going to. I go to UC Santa Cruz. That's kind of well known within the people that I went to high school with, but boy, do I have something to tell you. I'm really not that smart. In fact, I'm kind of stupid. There's a lot of people who are my graduating class. They're all at UC San Diego, UCLA, UC Berkeley. They're all really smart people. You guys, your type can go away. At the same time, on the other hand, there's like my type of people, kind of did okay in high school. Probably not one of the dumb kids, but at the same time, not one of like the super smart kids either. Just kind of someone who's in between. It's especially true for a lot of like Asian students as well, because there's a lot of people who are like, well, mega smart, go to freaking Harvard, MIT, or whatever. Then there's people like me, right? I only got accepted to UC Riverside, UC Santa Cruz, and Merced. A lot of people are going to probably be considering between schools like UC Davis, UC Santa Cruz, and Riverside. I'd put Davis a little bit higher than that, but mainly Santa Cruz, Riverside, and Merced. Those are kind of like the lower echelon of UC schools. I kind of have this thing, being a student here for pretty much a full year by now, and having done a lot of research into the history of this institution. I think a lot of people kind of have a misconception about what UC Santa Cruz actually is supposed to be. A lot of the focus really goes into like prestige, right? University prestige. So that's why everyone's always shooting for Berkeley, LA, things like that within the UC system. But I don't think prestige is what you should be focusing on if you're asking whether or not you actually want to go to a school like UC Santa Cruz. There's a number of reasons for that, but I think the big reason is that this school was never founded on the intention of achieving a high level of prestige like Berkeley. It was built in 1965 alongside UC Irvine and UC San Diego, and UC Santa Cruz was not meant to be like the other two schools. The other two schools were modeled to be more like UCLA, right? So they were mainly focused on providing a really good world-class education to a lot of people. That's not the point of UC Santa Cruz, and it never was to begin with. The guy who did a lot of the administrative planning, his name was Clark Kerr. He was the UC president during the time when UC Santa Cruz was founded, and again, UC Irvine, UC San Diego was made to model UC a little bit more. But the point of UC Santa Cruz was literally completely experimental. They threw everything out of the window. And that was kind of Clark Kerr's entire point. At that time, Clark Kerr was interviewing a lot of his students at UC Berkeley and also some from UCLA. And a lot of what he was getting from these students is that, the resources are great, the academics are great, but at the same time, it only feels like those two factors are the things present at these schools. They don't have any connection with the professors, they don't have any connections with other people. And there was a notion that you go to those schools and you kind of feel like a statistic instead of a student. The founding principle of UC Santa Cruz was the student experience and also the student-professor kind of dynamic that exists. You can see that in the way that they modeled the campus, right? We have 10 residential campuses and they're all kind of split up like all apart the campus. So there's no like one collective area where all the dorm buildings are. And the interesting thing about having the different residential colleges, right, is the academic campuses as well also are centered around certain residential colleges. So classes on the campus they're not really all over the place, but they're designed to be nearby certain residential colleges that fit kind of the tone or like the purpose of these classes. The basis of UC Santa Cruz was to go against the grain of large public universities like the rest of the University of California system. And I feel like a lot of people who are comparing and contrasting UCSC to schools like Riverside, they're kind of missing the whole point. I think the reason why a lot of people get accepted into UC Santa Cruz in the first place is not because it's an easy school to get into, it's because the educational initiative that they offer here can be suitable for a large group of people. It just happens to be that a lot of people tend not to choose it because they're too focused on the numbers, right? Because UC Santa Cruz objectively doesn't have the best numbers, right? We're ranked currently like the lowest in the UC system, which isn't a great look for the school. But again, if you're thinking about like the statistics and the numbers too much, you can go to a school where you get treated like a number or a statistic. That's not the point of UC Santa Cruz. If you choose to come here and stay here, because like a lot of people will come to UCSC and then immediately try to transfer out, you're kind of putting aside a bit of the, like the numbers and the prestige, and you're giving that up in exchange for the academic environment here, because you can say that Berkeley or LA is like the number one public university in the world, right? Our academic environment here is much closer to a private school than it is a public school, even though we still have the public price tag and the public school level of accessibility. And the type of student that comes here is somebody who wants exactly that. Santa Cruz is the only UC that focuses on student experience as its primary goal. And you can see that with the way that we're ranked and treated, because if you pit us up against schools like UCLA, right, in terms of resources, numbers, that kind of thing, how much cool research we're doing, that we're gonna lose. Like we're not competitive on that level. But at the same time, I think if you think about, you want to go to school, but at the same time you're not there just to study, you're not there just to go to class, then I think Santa Cruz wins by a landslide, because UC Santa Cruz is a very specific choice of university for a very specific type of person. So if you want prestige, if you want to, I don't know, meet with all the influencers, whatever, don't come here. It's not the place for you. You're missing the point of what the school has to offer. Other schools like Berkeley or UCLA will give you more in terms of rank. And in some cases too, because of that prestige, it comes with more opportunity. But what the school has to offer in terms of how you're treated in this academic environment is unlike anything else that I think, honestly, most major public schools have to say about themselves. So if you're worried about things like the general kind of like parasites of big university campuses, Santa Cruz might actually be a very viable option for you. Like, I know people who have turned down offers from UC San Diego, UC Irvine, because they chose to stick with the environment that they have at UC Santa Cruz. For some people, doing something like that probably doesn't make a lot of sense to you, but if you weigh the benefits and the downsides of coming to a campus like UC Santa Cruz and you choose to make a choice like that, those are the types of students that do the best here, right? Because there will be people that come in that are like, oh, I only got accepted into UC Santa Cruz because like I'm not smart or whatever, or like because my grades weren't so good. Those are the people that are like the unhappiest at UC Santa Cruz, because that's not who the school is for. Most people don't make the choice to UC Santa Cruz. They'll rescind their application, or they'll rescind their admission, whatever, because they choose to go to a school like San Diego or LA, right? Or most people choose not to apply here at all because they don't want to be at a less prestigious school. That's fine. But, you know, for the people that are not getting accepted into many of the other UCs, like myself, right? I think it's very worthwhile to kind of sit for a minute and sort of think about what you want out of your college experience. Obviously, it's really difficult to make a decision for yourself when you're like 17, 18, 19 years old, basically on how the rest of your life is going to look like. If there's one thing I can say, though, it's don't judge UCSC by the same metrics you would judge other schools by. So when you compare UC Santa Cruz to UC Riverside, don't treat them the same way and don't compare their numbers level with each other, because you're not thinking about the most important part about the design of UC Santa Cruz. I feel like UCSC gets a way worse rep than it needs to because it's not highly ranked as those other schools. But I think that those blanket statements completely undermine the fundamental mission of UC Santa Cruz. And I think that's something that a lot of people need to consider, especially if you're like me and did not get accepted into very many UC campuses. The reason being is that, yes, by certain metrics, UC Santa Cruz is not worth the time for some people. But at the other end of the spectrum, the mission that this school has and the environment that it seeks to obtain is something that a lot of people would appreciate more than going to a school where they're just there for the study. I objectively think that there's a lot of people that would do better at a school like UCSC than UCSD, for example. And I think a lot of people don't want to admit that because this school is less favorably ranked. It's not treated as a good school. To commit to a school like UC Santa Cruz takes a lot of humility, I feel like. And that is why, if you were in the same spot that I was last year, where you're not getting accepted into very many UCs, but Santa Cruz is one of the options that you have, think about it very, very hard. A lot of people, when picking a college to go to, will first start by asking things like, what's the rank of the school? Where are the alumni? Who are the alumni? What research resources do you have? And only after they pick the best out of that crop will they start asking questions like, okay, what's the student body size? How easy is it to talk to your professor? Something as simple as how good is the food? Or what goes through the student's head when they live at a place like this? After those first few questions, right? I think that's very backwards and it doesn't really make sense. If you're choosing to stay somewhere for the next 4 years and have an education, all of the UCs are going to have great education. Think about those other more subjective questions first, and then you can think about the objectives later. A lot of people are probably going to be less happy going to a higher ranked school that doesn't suit their personality in terms of academic environment versus somebody who makes the conscious decision to come to a place that, yeah, maybe it's not ranked as highly, however, suits their personality, has an environment that they actually enjoy, and has other like-minded people going to that same school with them. TLDR, to wrap things up before I go, if you're looking for a private school style education and private school style academic environment, but you want to pay the public university price tag and get public university level accessibility, UC Santa Cruz's campus you should consider. If you're looking to find a UC level education, but you don't want to be weighed down by the downsides that a lot of the major UC campuses face, UC Santa Cruz is something you should consider. There's a very specific type of person in academia that honestly I think a lot of people can self-identify themselves as that will do very well at a school like UC Santa Cruz. And that is why when you are weighing your options, do not dismiss this campus. Thank you for listening for my little rant from a UC Santa Cruz glazer. I hope you have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow for the next short of the day.